Hey guys, Mr. Amari here with another drawing tutorial this week. This week I'm going to be going with a Dungeons & Dragons character. As you guys might know, I'm really big into Dungeons & Dragons. I love the different types of creatures and monsters that you have in the game. We're going to be drawing one of the most iconic monsters from D&D, the Beholder. So let's get to it. Alright, so to start us out, the first thing we want to do, usually we take a look at some reference art. Now, I'm not going to be using a specific piece of reference art here. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys a Beholder is drawn many different ways. Different artists have different takes on it. It's one of the reasons why I love creatures like this, is because no one artist is going to do it exactly the same way, and that shouldn't be the same for any of us. This gives us a chance to be a bit more creative with it. Beholders, though, do have specific things that make them specifically beholders. So if you take a look at any of these, probably the most kind of generic looking one, the one that is most, the beholder type, is this right over here. Beholders usually have what's called a spheroid body. That means a body that is just a sphere, one giant eye in the middle, and a bunch of these kind of tentacles coming off that have eyes within them itself. Now, the way it works in the game is that the big eye in the middle is able to cast out like an anti-magic field, and then these eyes themselves, depending on the type of creature that it is and depending on the certain beholder, will be able to do different types of spells. You might be able to charm a person, you might be able to put out like an ice blast, you might be able to put out something where it turns them into stone. Really depends on the story you're playing with in the game of Dungeons & Dragons. So really all we need to know is that it has a spheroid body, it has a big old eye in the middle, it has a bunch of these tentacles coming off with little eyes in them, and almost universally they have these big old mouths that are just filled with sharp teeth. Really kind of any of these artist renditions that you've seen kind of follow that sort of model. It's even funny to see like some of the earliest versions of it still kind of follow that, like looking at this black and white one here. This is an early version of what a beholder looked like. Same thing, eyes, round body, mouth full of teeth, and just these eye stalks on the top. So let's go into our sketch pad and get started. Now I'm going to move my microphone back a little bit so I can draw a little easier. I'll probably add in the top corner over here somewhere, I'll probably add a picture of a beholder just so you can see as I'm drawing, but I'm not drawing from any one piece of reference art. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let my imagination take away a little bit. So first things first, I'm going to get in there on, again, I'm dealing with layers here. You can just be doing this with a piece of paper with a pencil. Make sure you're working in pencil all the time until you're ready to start finalizing it, so you can erase any mistakes you make or change anything that you don't quite like. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start by just sketching out a basic kind of sphere, circular type of body. And again, I'm not doing anything perfect, I'm just kind of sketching out the sphere, right? So I have my sphere here. And then I have to decide, do I want the eye facing front? Do I want it off to one of the sides? I'm actually going to try to make it kind of a profile look. That is, we're looking at the side a little bit of the creature. I'm going to do what's called a 3/4 view. So just a quick thing. We have what's called a front facing view, where the eyes and mouth of someone is on the front. That's a front facing view. A profile view is when it's facing one side or the other. So if the eyes were there, the nose was here, and the mouth was over here, that's a profile view, right? And then we have what's called a 3/4 view. A 3/4 view is where it's slightly off to one side, where I can put the eyes this way, the nose over here, and the mouth over here. Now this gives me, a little more drama to the picture that I'm drawing. This makes it look a little more interesting. So I kind of like 3/4 views. So what I am going to do is I'm going to do kind of a 3/4 view here of my beholder. I'm going to make it so that he's kind of looking down. The way I do that is I put the turn of my line here going more toward the bottom than the top. That's where his big old eye is going to go, is right there in the middle. So I'm going to make like just a big eyebrow for the eye to fit in. And then I'm going to make the big old eye right over there in the middle. And now I'm gonna want to clean this up a little bit, get some of those sketch lines out of there. I'm going to start kind of shaping the mouth. Now I want the jaw to come down a little bit, so I'm not going to make him perfectly spherical. I'm going to take out some of the side over here. I'm going to go ahead and draw kind of a mouth coming down, so it can look a little more menacing. So we're going to go ahead and take some of that out of there. The eye over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw just this big open mouth, right? This big open mouth that stretches really far back onto the face that I've drawn here. And of course, we're going to want to just add these big jagged teeth. This is supposed to be kind of a scary monster. They're one of the bigger monsters in D&D. This is one of the oldest monsters, actually. It might be one of the few monsters, I have to double check. It might be one of the only monsters that has been in every single edition of Dungeons & Dragons since the beginning. So this is one of the ones that when people think Dungeons & Dragons creatures, they think a beholder. And they tend to be kind of like big fights within a campaign. You know, these are not small, easy to defeat enemies. They're ones that usually have their own lair that you have to go into, and you know they're very, very dangerous and very scary a lot of times. All right, so I start to have the jaws here. Now you'll notice what I've done here is I've added layers of teeth, kind of like if you look at a picture of a shark. Sharks have these rows of teeth that go behind each other, and one way to get that effect is to draw the big teeth in the front here, and then in between two of the bigger teeth put a smaller triangle, and then put a smaller one in between those. And you can see just by doing that, it creates this illusion that there's just these rows of teeth going all the way back into the mouth. Now the other thing I'm going to do is instead of just leaving a line over here, notice how over here I just have this line here for the jaw. I'm going to erase that out. I want it to look almost like a snake's mouth where like it goes back a little bit. So I'm going to make this little turn here, and that's where the jaw is going to open up. That way it makes it look a little more reptilian, makes the jaw look a little more circular, and just makes it a little nastier to look at. Okay, so far so good. So far of the beholder things that we need for a beholder, we have the big round eye over here, we have the big scary teeth jaws, we have the rounded body shape. The next thing we need to do, and one of the things that really helps define what it is, are those kind of eye stalks coming out of it. And this is where you can have a lot of fun. This is where you can go ahead and put them wherever you want and kind of really add interest to your drawing here. Let me just finish putting the kind of big pupil for the eye here. I'm going to give him like a cat's eye for his main eye here. Very scary and sinister looking, because he is, you know, a creature. He is a monster. Go ahead and do that. And I kind of see that the eye is not that big, so I'm actually going to extend the size of it a little bit. Make it a little wider coming out this way, and make it a little taller going that way. But I still want to have that like furrowed brow, like I'm looking angry, looking like he's, you know, not happy that you're in his cavern or something. Get rid of that up there. So far, so good here. Get that cat's eye going all the way to the top. Kind of eye slit going. And then again, I have to start adding the eye stalks, right? So I'm going to start with an easy one. Just kind of have it come out this way and kind of turn up. Again, this is where looking at a picture of a beholder could be useful and helpful to give you some ideas of where you might want to place some of these. At the end of them, you want to put it's almost like you're doing parentheses, and put a little scoop down, and then put the little rounded part up top, and you have another eye over there. That's the easiest way at the end of the eye stalk to put the eyes parentheses on either side, put the little scoop in the middle, and then round off the top, and you have an eye stalk. already it's looking a bit more like a beholder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add those around. Add a bunch of them here. I'm going to add some that are kind of inside the hairline, for lack of a better term. I'm going to make them turn a little bit. One of the things you can do to make this thing look more three-dimensional is have things overlap each other. So you see that what I just did here is I'm having this tentacle overlap the line of the head. So over here, so you have it overlapping the line of the head. Then as it comes, I make it turn and then overlap itself as it comes over this way. So you can see that just by putting that little kind of S shape and have it come out the back over here, I have something that looks a bit more three-dimensional, something that looks like it actually is interacting with the things in the world around it. Makes it a little more dramatic, makes it look a little bit more like it's a real thing. And you just kind of keep adding those things. You just kind of keep adding, you know, those little extra details. Okay, so now I have a bunch here already. Now I might decide later on to add more if I want to. We can, but for now, let's just leave it at that. One of the things you're going to want to do is anywhere where it's on the part of the face where we see the front of the face, right here where the tentacles meet the head, we're going to make sure that we make it look like it's coming out of the head by putting these little kind of turns, like these little turns, so it looks like it's literally sprouting out of his head. This is if you do what I do at the end where you add like shadowing and stuff like that, that's going to help it further. Just make it look like it's there and part of his head coming out of his head. You know, you go through and take out any lines you don't need, anything that's kind of where your eye stalks or tentacles are overlapping. And then you can go ahead, and this is where you can be a bit more creative, right? This is where you can go ahead and add different things to your basic beholder. Now your basic beholder just kind of looks like this. What I can do though is, let's say I want to give it more of like a scaly dragon look. I can go and add scales over the body where the head is if I want to. Let's say I wanted to give it more of like, you know, a pointy or sharp look. I can add horns all over it. Really, there's a lot of things you can do to kind of finish off your beholder. For me, to make him look a little more mean and angry, I'm going to add some sharp points to him. I'm going to go ahead and add a few of, like, you know, kind of sticking out bone pieces and stuff just to make him look a little more wicked. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find just a spot on the body where, you know, down here by the chin, I'm going to draw an arrow so you can see where I'm working. Where I normally have my line for the chin, I'm going to draw a semicircle, take out the line where that semicircle started, and then I'm going to draw a cone, basically, where it's rounded on the bottom and pointy at the end. And if I do this and start adding that around the body, I can get kind of that more monstrous look for him and add a little more interest, you know, to what this guy looks like. You know, you can do that right where the turn of the jaw is. Over here is not a bad spot. You know, we have that squared off jaw. I can make the turn and put, you know, my spike right over there. And, you know, he'll start looking more like something out of the D&D monster manual, you know. I'm gonna, you know, he can be spheroid, but I'm gonna add a little more of these lines here too, just to give him a little more of kind of a skull look almost. Add some over here. Let's see, draw one like that. The side by his eye. Let's say we draw one right above his eye, which would be kind of cool looking. Another one coming out this way. Just kind of adding that kind of like mean look to this creature, meaner than he usually is anyhow. And this is where the artist's interpretation comes in. If you do a Google search for one of these guys, you'll see that sometimes people draw them looking like spiders, sometimes people draw them looking almost like dragon-like. It really is just comes down to your imagination with that. So you go ahead and add on to your beholder as you see fit. Anything you think is going to make him look cool. That's really the only rule with drawing anything like this is you want it to look cool, and you want it to be something that you really like. And that's, you know, the whole point of putting our own artistic stamp on something like this, is we want it to look like the thing we want it to look like. There are also people who've done the opposite. There are people who've done some really great work where they've drawn beholders looking cute and cuddly and almost like, you know, like a stuffed bear or something like that, which those are great drawings too. You know, so it really comes down to whatever your particular style is and what you want out of your beholder. Now, since I'm, you know, looking to do something that looks like it's coming out of like a D&D monster manual, you know, I'm adding, you know, a lot of these kind of vicious looking pieces to them. You know, and I'm going to add spikes over by this tentacle in the back here. You're almost like he's got, you know, a little hairline in the back full of spikes. Help shape his head a little bit. Yeah, a little dragon look almost going there. And there you have how to draw kind of your basic beholder. And then all you have to do is you do all your finishing touches. I'm going to go ahead and, of course, I'm going to hit the fast forward button here, outline this guy, add some shading, add some color. If you want to stick around for that, you can go ahead and watch me do that. You can also go ahead and start adding little bits into this drawing. Draw like a dungeon wall behind him. Put like a, you know, a treasure chest in front of him or something like that. One of the things you might want to do is you can go ahead and always just, because he's this spheroid thing, it's an easy thing to add kind of a shadow, right? You can go ahead and just add a basic shape underneath him that kind of fits his shape to give like the idea that he's floating above a floor. Because that is a big thing with beholders, is they float, they fly. So we want to kind of give that feeling and look, you know, when we're, you know, drawing one of them. Just adding a shadow underneath them really does a whole lot. You add the basic shape, kind of the rounded shape, figuring out where your light's coming from, then you go ahead and draw yourself a shadow underneath. Now this isn't perfect, this isn't great, but this is pretty much what you'd want to do in a situation like this. So there's your basics. I'm going to hit the fast forward button so we can get the outline and the coloring done. Thank you guys for joining me this week. I look forward to doing another one of these with you again next week, guys.